and thanks to the DACA team for their hard work in the face of, I'm sure, many challenges. Okay, let's go. So my name is Michael. I'm a PhD candidate at CDU Hong Kong, and I'm also an artist. I run a studio here in Berlin and also in southeast Austria, which is going to be the focus of my talk. My project is called Casted, and I will explain in the following. So CASTED stands for Center for Aesthetic, Social, Technological, and Ecological Discourse. Calling a modest a place like this a center is certainly somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I think it also signifies a certain ambition to carve out a niche for something quite unique. So this presentation outlines an approach to a small-scale interdisciplinary residency currently under development in southeast Austria. I discussed the concept, its implementation, the physical manifestation, and multiple perspectives on long-term sustainability. When I say residency, I just mean a place where people can come together and work together for a certain amount of time. So allow me to approach the next couple of slides from a somewhat personal, subjective, and anecdotal perspective. So I'm half Austrian. My father is Austrian. My grandparents spent most of their lives in Graz. And they had a summer home roughly 70 kilometers east of Graz in Rohr im Burgenland, which you can see on the far right. And the house still exists, and it's the focus of my project. So here we are back in 1983. This is my grandfather, my father, and I planting a tree. And this was the house around the same time. It's a very modest place, and some of you in Austria may recognize the architecture. These houses were typically attached to vineyards, and the vineyard also still exists. It's in the back on the other side. And here is the front view. In the next slide here, this is also 1983, and if you compare it to today, not much has changed, thankfully. The one thing you're going to notice here, for instance, is that there is a lot of underutilized space, so to speak. So the place has a lot of potential, and this is what I have been thinking about over the last couple of years. So let me briefly read the concept. Casted is an interdisciplinary residency currently under development in southeast Austria. It aims to bring together artists, designers, architects, cultural producers, thinkers, philosophers, and scientists, as well as more than human participants, to reflect upon questions of global and planetary significance. The institution takes a post-anthropocentric position and puts a particular emphasis on multi-species interdependency. It provides a forum for rethinking questions concerning human-animal relationships, ecology and agriculture, the urban-rural divide, post-anthropocentric anthropology, labor and automation, life and biotechnology, regeneration, care, and repair, and the multiplicity of implications opened up through advances in technology and computer science. Highly dependent on collaboration, it establishes a framework for the production of knowledge and relationships as much as the dissemination thereof. So here I just visualized the associated fields as I've already mentioned them. And of course, what's particularly important is the intersections, the overlap, and the interactions thereof. This is an overview of the methods, so to speak. I think many of them are quite self-explanatory. Interdisciplinarity, as I've already said, collaboration, local food production, farming, the interaction with animals, the interaction with plants. Accessibility is important physically, meaning that a part of the structure is going to have to be wheelchair accessible, but also as a strategy, as a concept, as a method, how to make the place accessible, how to make it inclusive. Mondialité, this is of course the reference to Edouard Glissant, worldliness, the planetary, locality, as the philosopher Yukui has argued for. And then somewhat more hands-on things like towards zero waste, the usage of solar energy, water reviews, and rainwater harvesting, for instance. All of this I subsume under the conceptual umbrella of regeneration, which is also the core concept of my dissertation. And last, for instance, involving local communities, and here I will go to the next slide. I don't have many references. I mean, as an artist, I've done several international residencies, all of which were great and all of which I have learned from a lot. There's one reference I quickly like to mention. This is, of course, the Académie d'été, the summer school of philosophy of the late Bernard Stiegler. Of course, I am in no way comparing my little project to this great school. But one thing that really interests me, as we were discussing with the philosopher Yukui in a class last year, is that the local people, the village people, they were involved in this, and I think, as I've mentioned in the last slide, I really place a high emphasis on involving local communities. But the question is then, of course, how to do so, how to open up the place, and I believe that maybe this could be a kind of a role model to do so. So collaboration, as I said, is very important. Here, for instance, universities, of course, Vienna, Graz, Linz, for instance, Ars Electronica, local resources, communities and institutions, art institutions, museums and galleries, residencies throughout Austria. This is, of course, not exhaustive, but I think these would be critical places to collaborate with. So here, just to further contextualize a little bit locally, we're here in the upper right corner, and so for instance, you can see there's a Feldbach where actually pretty good art is shown. Then there's Jennersdorf, there's Neumarkt an der Raab, which operates a quite well-known residency already, and then here in Oberhendorf there are several permaculture projects which are very interesting. So just to point out that there are things happening on a more local level that would also be pretty interesting to connect with. So I was hoping to show you really cool renderings and parametric Rhino drawings, but so I'm not quite there yet. But this is the house as it stands. This drawing includes a little bit more work that's yet to be done, but once that's in place, I think 2 guests could stay with partners and small families, perhaps. And then in the front, In the front lower part, here's a bungalow type structure that also could house 2 additional guests. So that would be the next step to take if whenever that is possible. And this architecture, of course, also has to take into consideration solar energy, rainwater collection, and so on and so forth. So how to proceed and how to make the place stable. There's a couple things I can mention. It'll be operational only during a short period of time over the summer, during the break of the academic year. The infrastructure will be provided, and the ongoing costs will have to be secured, which I believe is possible. So guests will be provided with a stipend, and travel expenses will be covered. I think that's very important, even though it might be modest. No one should pay to do this. Time is getting a little tight right now, so I'll bring this to a close. It'll be by invitation, but there are also ways of applying to it informally. I think it's very important to sort of negotiate a minimum of administration, but also a way to open up the place to, in a sense, everyone potentially. Good. Last not least, Casted aims to operate on a net zero carbon emissions basis. And I think this is already it. I want to thank the DACA team again for their hard work, and I want to thank all of you for questions, comments, and feedback. If anyone of you is interested, would like to get involved, please contact me, send me an email. I look forward to talking more. Thank you so much.